So today we've talked a little bit about the Constitution and the structure of the Constitution. We're going to start moving into the amendments. Today we're not going to talk about all 27. We're only going to focus on the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was needed in order to ratify the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists wanted some assurance that the people and their rights, or the people's rights, would not be infringed upon by the national government. Originally, the Bill of Rights only applied to the national government, but over the years it has been incorporated into the various states. In looking at the First Amendment, we're not going to read through all of these, but through some of them, I do have the actual wording. So here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That covers a lot of basic freedoms. The first one is freedom of religion. The first part is the Establishment Clause. Basically, Congress cannot establish a national religion. Then the second part is the Free Exercise Clause. People are free to practice whatever religion they please. Together, these are known as the separation of church and state. It also applies to the expression of ideas, including newspapers, books, radio, television, movies, the internet, and there has been some regulation in terms of what exactly is on the internet and so on and so forth. The First Amendment also applies to freedom of speech. It does not apply to defamation, spreading military secrets, or speech that could put the nation in danger. We will look at freedom of speech in depth a lot more towards the end of this class. It also protects freedom of assembly, so you can pass out pamphlets, hold meetings, you can peacefully protest. The government can require groups to obtain a permit ahead of time, but they can't actually prevent a group from assembling. Freedom to petition, so people can sign petitions to support ideas and then can send those petitions to local government officials in order to enact change. So here are two of Norman Rockwell's more famous paintings, freedom of speech and freedom of worship. The Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This involves the right to security. The British tried to eliminate militias leading up to the Revolution, so that's one of the reasons why people felt the need to include it in a Bill of Rights. The right to maintain guns outside of the context of a militia has actually been debated for many years. In 2008, District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court decided in a close decision, 5-4, that people could use handguns for lawfully defending their homes, but the right to bear arms was not unlimited. This was then extended to apply to state governments in 2010. So I'm sure some of you have seen this meme, but the right to bear arms in Soviet Russia, we have right to hold bear. It's a picture of Vladimir Putin with his shirt off riding a bear. Pretty funny, I think. Third Amendment. Government is prohibited from forcing people to shelter soldiers in their homes, aka quartering troops. Saying this, however, in times of war, people may be required to house troops, but it must be clearly defined by law. So, looks like this mom is harboring her son in I don't know if it's a Civil War or what, but it's Nerf World War III. Fourth Amendment, limited search and seizure by the government. Authorities must have a reason. There are some exceptions. You have probable cause, but typically a search warrant is needed. Seizures also applies to seizure of a person or an arrest. The government cannot just go arresting random people off the streets for no apparent reason. The Fifth Amendment has 4 important protections. One is you must have evidence to be tried for a crime. 2, you cannot be tried for the same crime twice if found innocent. 3, you do not have to testify against yourself for self-incrimination. So in movies, you might see someone who pleads the fifth. Like, I refuse to answer that question on the grounds of self-incrimination. 4 is you must have due process of law, or the process of law must work its way or work itself out before a conviction is granted. The Fifth Amendment also defines the government's right to eminent domain, or the power to take private property for public use. So maybe your house sits on top of an oil reserve, and this oil reserve can make the government a lot of money or make the country a lot of money. The government has the right to take your property. The Sixth Amendment is a right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. Okay? Authorities cannot hold a person an unreasonably long amount of time while awaiting trial. This has been brought into question with the Patriot Act in terms of terrorism after 2001, where the government can hold you an extended period of time if they think you are involved in some sort of terrorist act. This also prevents the government from silencing critics because the trial has to be public. They can't just hold you in a basement and quickly end your life or sentence you to prison without people seeing the process of the law playing out. You have the right to a jury. This allows for people to know the crimes they're accused of, and people do have the right to be tried by a judge alone. They have to state that they only want to be tried by a judge, but that is a right that people have. People have the right to hear and question all witnesses against them. They have a right to a lawyer, and they can call witnesses to their defense. Seventh Amendment is a trial by jury in federal court for property matters valued over $20. A judge does have the ability to hear evidence and decide the case, but like I said earlier, they do have a right to a trial by jury in this instance. The Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive bail or fines. It also bans cruel and unusual punishment. It has been used to limit the death penalty in some cases, depending on how the death penalty will be administered. The Ninth Amendment says all other rights not in the Constitution are retained by the people. Essentially, it prevents the government from limiting people's rights to the rights stated in the Bill of Rights. And the 10th Amendment says that power is not delegated to the United States nor prohibited to the states or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Power is not given to the federal government or retained by the states or the people. And it's the reserved powers granted to the states. Thank you for listening.